My final year the university was supposed to be the best year, a time to focus on finishing my degree, but instead, it turned into a lesson I would never forget. It all began with my living arrangements. I shared an off-campus apartment with a course mate, a spacious one-room self-contained unit with a small kitchen attached and its restroom. The two of us had some bit of privacy, each having a bed on opposite sides of the room. It was the kind of living arrangement that was ideal for students who wanted to be independent. My course mate John had a girlfriend Tosha who was, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful girls I had ever seen. She was flirtatious, with mischievous eyes that gleamed when she smiled. She had a playful and friendly demeanor that made it hard for anyone not be drawn to her. She often visited, especially when I decided to go home for the weekend. It wasn't uncommon for her to spend the weekend at our place, making the most of her time with her boyfriend, especially when I was away. One weekend, however, was different. The governor of our state was coming to commission a new faculty building, and there was going to be a grand event with an all-expenses-paid trip to the annual conference for lawyers in the country, to which final-year students were eligible to attend. It was a big deal, and I had planned to attend, but a last-minute issue cropped up. I was expecting someone at home that weekend, so I wasn't going to attend the conference. John invited Tosha over to spend the weekend with him. She, however, had other plans and informed him that she couldn't make it. This left him disappointed, and in an attempt to salvage the weekend, he decided to attend the trip alone. So on Friday morning, as John headed off, I bade him farewell, wishing him a good trip. Little did I know, that would be the turning point of my life. So with a small bag I was to carry home, I went to see a friend to sort out some issues on campus before I head home. About an hour later, I received a call from the person I was expecting at home. He told me he wouldn't be able to make it till the next weekend, which meant I now had the entire weekend free. I quickly called John, telling him to hold down a seat for me on the chartered bus, that I would be joining him on the trip since my appointment was cancelled. He said he would try, as the departure time seems to have been exceeded. I hurried back to our apartment to grab my things, eager not to miss the bus. However, as I opened the room, I noticed the lights weren't working, even though there was power. As I flashed my phone light around to see my way, I was startled by the sight of someone lying on the bed. It was Tosha. She looked just as surprised as I was. She had clearly expected me not to be around, and had planned to surprise her boyfriend with a spontaneous visit, since she had an extra key to our apartment, unaware he had changed his mind to attend the conference, since he hadn't called her back since she had declined his request. But now that I was there, everything seemed awkward. She was in a revealing nightie, and it was obvious she hadn't expected to be caught off guard like this. She quickly explained that she had planned to surprise her boyfriend, thinking I'd be away for the weekend. It was then that I explained the change of plans, how John had left for the trip and how I had decided to join him last minute. As I hurried to pack my things, she told me she needed to freshen up, as she had fallen asleep on the bed without the fan on and had woken up sweating. I was in a rush, my mind preoccupied with the idea of catching the bus, when I got a call from John. There was only one seat left, and the organizers were about to leave. I rushed to finish packing, but as I was gathering my things, I remembered that I hadn't told John that his girlfriend was in the apartment. I dropped my phone in my haste, not knowing it had slipped into silent mode, barely managing to dress as I heard the sound of her footsteps approaching. She had just come out of the bathroom, looking fresh and smelling intoxicatingly sweet. Her gaze lingered for a moment, and for a split second, I could feel the weight of her eyes on me, especially on my lower half. I quickly slipped on my trousers, muttering that I needed to leave before the bus left without me. She suggested she would just stay in the apartment, watch TV, and relax until Sunday. As I rushed out, she gave me a hug. I had no time to think, but the moment lingered, and I couldn't deny the way her body pressed against mine, her scent filling my senses. I ran toward the bus stop, heart racing. But as I checked my phone, I noticed several missed calls from my course mate. He had tried to reach me, but I hadn't had my phone. I tried to call him back, but the network was bad, and by the time I made it to the bus, I saw the vehicle driving off in the distance. My heart sank. I had missed my chance. There I was, standing alone with my options narrowed. I could either go home, which seemed pointless since I would still need to go the following weekend, or I could go back to the apartment. But how do I navigate this girl who has decided to stay in our lodge till her boyfriend returns on Sunday, considering what I had experienced from when I came into the room till the hug I had received as I left? These thoughts hovered through my mind as I made the journey back to our lodge. As I walked back, I remembered that light bulbs in the room needed replacement. I decided to pick up replacements on the way, thinking how dark it would be at night and an uncomfortable experience with her around. When I arrived at the apartment, I knocked, not wanting to surprise her again, especially since she wouldn't be expecting me to return. She opened the door and greeted me with a warm smile. Her demeanor was sweet, as always, and she immediately tried to cheer me up about missing the trip. "You can keep me company until your friend returns," she said casually. The words hit me like a whisper in the dark, and for a moment, I considered the implications. What would it hurt to spend some time with her? After all, she was just trying to be kind, right? I jokingly said why not. I dropped my bags and quickly replaced the lights. Despite her friendliness, I had always maintained a respectful distance. John and I shared more than a room, we shared dreams, struggles, and a brotherhood forged through years of academic hurdles. But fate has a way of testing even the strongest of bonds, especially when hidden desires are left unchecked. We started gisting and our conversations grew warmer, the atmosphere charged with unspoken desires. Tosha is playful, her teasing laced with suggestiveness that tests one's resolve. She seems unaware or perhaps very aware of the dangerous game she's playing. They shared laughter, and a moment of vulnerability almost led to a kiss, but I pulled back, guilt crashing over me. I see John's trusting face in my mind and realize how close I've come to destroying something irreplaceable. So I told her that Elle needed to pick up some books from a friend that I would return soon. So I picked up the books I needed, tried to do some reading but was too distracted, then called my friend Ben and went to his room to gist and while away some time before returning to my room. When I returned to the apartment, I was more unsure than ever. She was sitting on the couch, the TV on in the background. Her smile was warm and inviting, but I could see the tension in her eyes. She was lonely, and I could tell she wanted company. She made me tea, and we began to talk casually about everything and nothing. It was comfortable, and for a while, I forgot about the consequences of what was happening. The night was slowly coming in and she made a good dinner. She is good in cooking delicious meals. After eating, we continued gisting. The conversation shifted to more personal topics, and before I knew it, we were sitting closer together. She placed her hand on mine, and my heart skipped a beat. Her touch sent a jolt of electricity through me, and I could feel the temptation building. She was looking at me differently now, her eyes soft, her gaze lingering. "I am enjoying this our talk," she said, her voice low and suggestive. I hesitated, my mind racing. I knew this was a line I shouldn't cross. She was my coursemate's girl, and anything that happened now would destroy everything. But in that moment, all reason seemed to vanish. I leaned in closer, and we kissed. It was a slow, sweet kiss, one that seemed to linger forever. The world around me faded, and for a brief moment, I thought I was in control. But deep down, I knew this was wrong. What followed was a blur. I don't even remember the details of that night, just the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. When the sun came up, the reality of what I had done hit me like a tidal wave. I had crossed a line that should never have been crossed, and now, everything had changed. The weekend passed in a blur of guilt, shame, and regret. When my coursmate returned on Sunday, everything seemed normal. He greeted us both, oblivious to what had transpired. I couldn't look him in the eye. The weight of my actions was crushing, and I knew there was no going back. As the days went by, I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. After 1 week, John noticed I wasn't free around him anymore. He began to suspect something was wrong, and it eventually slipped out of Tosha's mouth during one of their arguments where she said I was better than him. My relationship with my John became strained, and the once easy relationship we shared was now tainted by what I had done. I tried to bury it, but the memory haunted me. I had destroyed a friendship, lost my self-respect, and worst of all, I had hurt someone who trusted me. The girl who had seemed so irresistible in that moment now seemed like a distant, dangerous memory. I learned, too late, that the things that seem so enticing and irresistible often come with consequences far worse than we could ever imagine. The temptation had been sweet, but the fallout was bitter. Then suddenly I woke up sweating profusely. It had been a dream, a very realistic one at that. I had stayed long at Ben's place while gisting to while away time. I had slept off and had a dream that seemed so real I had imagined it had happened. I felt so relieved. It was already 9 p.m., so I returned back to my room composing in my head the explanation I would give to Tosha for returning so late. What a relief to find her sleeping. As I opened the door, I quietly changed my clothes in the restroom and lay on my bed relieved that my worst fears was just a dream, one that could have drastically changed my life and friendship with John forever. Early Saturday morning, I left the room claiming I needed to work on my project with my group maybe into the night, fearing my dream could come true if I spent more time with Tosha. Sunday finally came. John returned with a wide smile, unaware of the storm that had raged in his absence. He embraces Tosha warmly, overjoyed by her surprise visit. Watching them, I was consumed by shame and relief that I hadn't crossed a line I could never uncross. Days pass, but the memory of the temptation lingers. Tosha and I never spoke of what happened or almost happened, but the weight of it remains in the air. I realized that what seemed so alluring in the heat of the moment was nothing more than an illusion, a fleeting thrill that could have cost me everything. If there's one thing I learned from that experience, it's that no matter how attractive the temptation may seem, it's never worth the price you pay. I was this close to losing a strong friendship built over time.